I haven't watched it a lot in DC.
That's awesome.
In fact,
He plays in DC.
yeah, I watched him play SC Dallas in Dallas. And he got sent off and the record overturned. Because the VAR first came out. And we were like, this is, you never see it before.
All I know
And
is
that's all
VAR.
like next game is in London.
You know what I'm saying? All I know is VAR. So I'm gonna go with like what it's for.
So basically, before whatever the referee decided to do,
You decided to come back, Mr. Cooks? I'm glad you decided to come back.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I do notice that.
All right, good morning, everybody. How's it going?
Good.
Good? One good? That's all? Announcements? Nathan gives a thumbs up. Announcements? Comments?
I agree with
A great bagel
As did I.
from
this
Einstein Brothers.
Yes.
Same?
Yep.
Y'all go together?
We did.
Oh, okay.
Fire. Talk about life.
What else?
Swam in the Chattahoochee River yesterday.
Baptized in the Chattahoochee, huh?
It was awesome. First time ever.
Whereabouts?
We went down to this park by Fort Moore.
Okay.
Walked a mile. Brought the cooler. Brought the grill.
Nice. What was the occasion? Just regular Monday afternoon?
After practice.
Yeah.
Boys decided to go. I was like, I'm down.
Very nice. I like that. Anything else? What you got to say, Mr. Harris?
I went to Ebro, Florida.
Ebo.
Ooh, bro.
Ebro.
It's the closest place that allows you to be 18 and I'm not 21.
Oh, is that where the dog track is? Okay, I know what you're talking about. That's on the way to where he lives.
I'm on 400.
$400 in poker? All right. Do people in the Panhandle, Mr. Wilmot, do they go to the poker and dog races?
Oh, yeah.
Local people do?
Oh, yeah.
Not just for tourists anymore?
There's no dog races anymore. It's just poker.
Yeah.
There's no dog races anymore?
No.
When did they stop those?
I think a good bit ago. It looks like whenever like there's like an apocalyptic like movie and there's trees.
I drive by that one going to the beach down, maybe near where you're talking about, but I didn't realize they quit doing it.
Yep.
The animal rights people caught up with them, I guess. All right, anybody have anything else? Okay, let's jump into it. So, first week of torts, we talked about intentional torts. Last week and Tuesday, we talked about negligence, unintentional torts, when our careless actions, conduct, or behavior causes damage to others such that we should be responsible for that. And today we're going to talk about products liability. Before I get into that, I want to pick up where I left off one thing in our negligence discussion Tuesday, arguably in negligence. But it's this. There are some activities, some things that are so dangerous that no matter how careful we are, we're going to be liable or responsible for any damage that we do. That's called strict liability. So whereas in intentional torts, the plaintiff would have to prove that the defendant acted intentionally. And in a negligence tort, the plaintiff would have to prove that the defendant had a duty of care that they breached. Strict liability does not require the plaintiff to prove either intent or a duty of care. It's not a common doctrine, strict liability, but it does exist. Things like keeping dangerous animals. If I have a pet Bengal tiger and my Bengal tiger escapes and eats my neighbor's dog, then I might be liable under the theory of strict liability no matter how careful I was with my tiger. Companies that operate dynamite legally on construction sites or demolition sites. The theory behind that strict liability for demolition people would be, it doesn't really matter how careful you are, you're dealing with dynamite. And if you detonate dynamite and it causes damage to somebody's property or to their person, you're going to be responsible. That's strict liability. And that goes against, it goes a little bit against our policy of making people responsible for their actions when they're not careful. Okay? Because we're saying in strict liability, you're as careful as you can be. You couldn't have been any more careful, but the harm still happened. Strict liability. Strict liability is also a theory under products liability as well, which we'll see in a minute. But there are some times when negligence is, when intent or carelessness is not even part of the equation. Strict liability. All right, let's jump into products liability for a second. Products liability, from a large point of view, is the idea that we're going to hold the manufacturers of products, goods, and services responsible for any damage that their products do due to fault on the part of the manufacturer. Now, this could look a lot of different ways, and there's different theories of recovery under products liability. One of them is negligence. We can take everything we talked about Tuesday and apply that to products liability. What duty overall does a manufacturer have to the consumer? To make what? A safe product. That's right. I mean, that's where it all stems from. A duty to make a safe product that doesn't harm the consumer or the end user or anybody else that's coming in contact with that. That duty could extend to a lot of different areas. The manufacturer has a duty to design the product in a way that's safe. They have a duty to select materials for the product that are safe. They have a duty to actually manufacture the manufacturing process. They've got a duty to do that in a way that creates a safe product. They have a duty to market it in a way that's safe. They have a duty to warn the consumer of any risks or dangers that the product poses. That's why you see, you ever looked at a warning label on some things and you're like, who would set fire to a mattress? But the warning labels are on there because either somebody did it, some idiot did it, there was some court case where the jury found the manufacturer liable for not warning people of something, so on and so forth. So manufacturers have a duty to warn. They've got a duty to inspect the product, to test it, to make sure that in all areas it's safe. The negligence would come into play if they breached that duty. Let's say they designed the product in a way that wasn't safe. They chose a material that was flammable. Like, this is a really old example, but there were those kids' pajamas where the material was highly flammable. And that turned out to be a big problem. Inadequate warnings we talked about. So when that duty is breached, then we keep on going down the negligence line of, did the breach cause the injury? Was it the proximate cause? And did the person suffer damages? And if the answer to those is yes, then you can recover for a defective product under the theory of negligence. You could also recover under products liability under the theory of fraud. So go back to in your mind go back to the intentional torts week where we talked about fraud. That was where the person intentionally misrepresented a fact, a feature, some information about the product that the misrepresentation is intended to cause the person to rely on it. That's fraud. That was an intentional tort. That is also a theory of products liability. If the plaintiff, the injured person, can prove that the misrepresentation was intentional. So that's another theory. A third theory of recovery under products liability is strict liability, meaning that a manufacturer did not intend to make a defective product. They didn't fraudulently misrepresent or mislead any consumer into buying or using it. They weren't negligent. So if they weren't negligent, that means that they were careful in designing the product, choosing the materials, manufacturing it, marketing it, testing it, and putting whatever warnings on it. But somehow, no matter how careful they were, the product is still defective. So strict liability could be a theory that a plaintiff uses to recover under products liability. Why would we do that? Why would we want to hold the manufacturer accountable or responsible when they weren't negligent? They didn't intend to make a defective product. They didn't mislead anybody. Why would we want to do that? What's the policy behind that? What do you think, Mr. Henry?
As a victim, I would say, they can get compensated and pay for medical expenses.
Okay, from the victim's point of view, somebody still has damages. All right, why is that fair? That as between the victim and the manufacturer, why would we place that burden on the manufacturer?
Whenever you're creating something new, you have to make sure the products you're using are safe.
Okay.
Otherwise,
You still feel like the manufacturer has some responsibility even though they were careful? Not wrong. What else?
Even though they were super careful, did they know there was still problems? And
They-
did they let people know that they might still be dangerous?
So if they knew and they didn't do anything about it, then that might be a different theory, fraud or negligence. But we're saying they weren't negligent, they just made a product that turns out that when people use it, it's defective. Who knew? They tested it tested out all right. So why would we want to make the manufacturer pay? Come on, be plaintiff's lawyers. You guys represent the injured party. They need to learn their lesson.
They're in the best position to pay.
They're in the best position to pay. That's a good argument. As between the consumer and the manufacturer, who's got the ability to pay? The manufacturer, in theory, has an easier way to pay. We want to incentivize, like Moultrie said, we want to incentivize or punish the manufacturers, which want to give them a reason to be as careful as they possibly can be. We don't want to make it easier on them to fall back on, well, we were careful. Can't blame us for negligence. Good reasons. That is the theory behind it. So, speaking of that, let's talk about some defenses to products liability real quick. One is assumption of risk. That's similar to the defense that we had in negligence. I buy a chainsaw and the chain is defective, and I open the box and I see that it's defective. I see that it's come off the blade, but I use it anyway. Then I might sue the manufacturer for making a defective product, but they also might raise the defense to me of assumption of risk. I knew it was defective, I did it anyway. That might also bring up some comparative negligence defenses as well. We talked about those. That would apply as well. Yes.
Could they prove that he knew?
How could they prove that he knew? That'd be hard to do.
What's stopping them from seeing those regular used anyway to get them?
What's stopping either one of them from lying about it, right? That's a good point. And that illustrates the difficulty you have sometimes with litigation and proving your points in court, right? So let's draw that out. I saw that the thing was defective. It'd be really hard for them to show that I knew it unless there were some eyewitnesses or trying to think what else. You know what trips people up now is video. People video everything, right? Hey, video me cutting down this tree right here with this chainsaw. Like, well, Mr. Tebow, the thing's off of it. You saw it and knew it. It'd be hard to do. That's another reason I think that maybe we do impose strict liability sometimes on the manufacturers, is rather than fight out who knew what, who was whether or not there was negligence, we're just going to say, if the product malfunctioned, manufacturer is on you. Good question. Product misuse. Let's say I buy that chainsaw and my wife asked me to come inside and cut the cake. And I take my chainsaw inside to cut the cake. And I cut through the cake and the plate shatters and throws shards of glass into people at the birthday party. That's misuse. That might be a defense that the manufacturer could use against me. Yes, I don't even know that my example is kind of hard to see where the product was defective. Maybe the chain was broken, but nevertheless, that kind of thing. You used it for something that it wasn't an intended use. And then comparative negligence, we get into that as well. So that brings us to the McDonald's hot coffee case. So let's look at that for a second. Pull that up, please, if you haven't read it, or at least for you to have to look at. Wait on my internet to join. All right, just curious. Well, before we start this, let me back up. Anybody ever had any experience with a defective product before? Any personal experience? Sage, you want to tell us about it? I'm sorry, I couldn't. My hearing is terrible. Did you say you didn't want to tell us? It's okay if you don't.
Oh, no, I don't care.
Oh, okay. I thought you said no, so I was going to let y'all cook.
One time I got like a body wash from the cow, just like the pump was like broken on.
Okay. Pump was broken off body wash. That's effective, right? Could be that the manufacturer maybe was negligent in one of the ways they did it, or it could be that they were careful, but it was still broken. It's still going to be their fault. It's broken.
Those new Starbucks coffee cups for the hot cups are actually reliable. I hate those things. I spilled coffee with those so many times.
The new Starbucks coffee cups.
Yeah,
Tell me about those.
They used to have a different one before that was like way better, but now you replace it.
Why do you think? Do you know?
Cheaper, probably.
Okay.
Because like it's made of like a way thinner material, not styrofoam anymore.
Okay.
So like,
That would seem to be risky for Starbucks.
well, like all I know is every time I pick it up, I squeeze it just a little bit too hard, the lid flies off and coffee doesn't work.
That is a problem with the thin cups.
Yeah.
The thing is hard for the lids there. Good. Anybody else? Ben?
Tennis racket.
The tennis racket.
Yeah, it was effective while
Factory problem.
Yeah.
Did it-
Broke the arm of the racket, but you shouldn't have.
Did it injure you?
No.
Could it have energy?
Not really, I think so, probably not.
Did you know
Maybe.
that?
Yeah, no, I got a little more.
Gotta know.
Yeah.
What?
I bought a microwave from Walmart whenever I moved in to my apartment last year, and it had this big dent in it, like, looked like a car accident in the back of it. But I couldn't tell from the box, and I plugged it in, and because I was hungry, so I used it, and it sounded like a drumming pan.
Oh.
Yeah,
Take it back?
yeah,
Got
good.
money back for it?
Yeah.
Usually people are, the manufacturers or the retailers are usually pretty good, especially the big box retailers, about just giving you your money back or switching it out. Did you have one, Kristen?
Yeah, I had a scooter that I bought on Amazon, of course. The thing was falling apart, it was pieces, it was holes all in the box, had fell everywhere, so I had to send it back.
You just sent it straight out?
I sent it back and it took me a while to get the money back.
I was about to say Amazon doesn't ask a lot of questions, but
They
they did this
usually
time.
don't, no, they just did not, I guess they, something fell by the wayside, they didn't,
Gotcha. The customer service issue,
yeah. So
something
I had to
wrong.
call and try to look into it.
What about, what else was I gonna ask you? Oh, the, McDonald's hot coffee case. I'm curious, who had heard of this before you read about it? All right, who had never heard of this before? Y'all are all so young. It makes me feel so old. You never heard about it? Oh, go ahead.
They would burn the chicken nuggets for 2 months, and burn the girl.
Really?
They got them too.
When was that?
Years ago.
I did not know that. The chicken nuggets were too hot.
Yeah.
Huh.
They gave it like, I don't know what they reburned it.
We would expect the coffee to be hot, but maybe not the nuggets, right? Well, this happened in the 90s. And so some of you may not have been here yet. But when it happened, it went viral, as we would say now. It was on all the news. It was a big deal. This lady got $3 million for spilling coffee in her lap, and people were outraged, and the general popular opinion was that this is ridiculous and a sign that this country is going to hell. What is this world coming to when somebody can spill hot coffee and get $3 million for it? But there was a little more to it, as you know now from reading it, or if you knew anything about it beforehand. So let's set the scene. What happened here? What did we take us through? Let's assume it was a morning. Who can tell me what happened on this fateful morning?
Elderly woman going through the drive-through.
Is that Mr. Massey in the back? Our elderly one, grandma's going through the drive-through. Who's driving her? Remember that?
Her son.
Her son or grandson or some family member. Where is she sitting?
Passenger seat.
Yep. And they get coffee. What does she do with it?
Put it between her lap.
Puts it in her lap between her knees. Got to paint the picture here. And then grandson pulls over so she can put her stuff in it, right? So she takes the top off. And then what happens? It spills toward her, all down in her lap. Her sweatpants absorb it, hold it close to her skin. She suffers some pretty bad burns, spends a week in the hospital, has some surgery, skin graft surgeries, and that kind of thing. So how hot was the coffee?
About 180 degrees Fahrenheit.
180 degrees Fahrenheit. And if I told you before you knew anything about this, that McDonald's coffee, when they hand it to you at the drive-thru, is 180 degrees, what is your reaction?
Before I knew anything, I tried to like, okay.
I would be like, I have no idea what that means. Like, is that good? Is that bad? I mean, I assume that's fine because I trust McDonald's, right? They serve billions of cups of coffee. So it's 180 degrees. I think somewhere in your reading it said that was equivalent to like rocket fuel or something like that. What were Miss Liebeck's damages?
$10,000 in medical, she got
10,000 in medical. So what category of damages would we put those in? They're not punitive damages.
Compensatory.
They're compensatory damages. That's to compensate her for actual, provable, quantifiable loss. $10,000 in medical bills. Did y'all catch how much she asked for at the beginning of her lawsuit? $20,000. She sued McDonald's for $20,000. What'd she end up getting awarded from the jury?
200,000.
$200,000 in compensatory damages. That's exactly right. So think about that for a second. She asked for, really, it looks like 10,000. If we break down her ask of $20,000, $10,000 would have been for her medical bills, and the other $10,000 would have been for some of the general damages that would still fall under compensatory, like pain and suffering. Let's see what else. I know it says it in there. I want to say exactly what it was. Anybody see it where it says exactly what the $200,000 covered?
It says compensate her for past and future pain, for suffering,
There we go. Pain and suffering,
emotional distress,
emotional distress,
lost wages,
lost wages, and medical bills. All right. So in her mind, at the beginning of the suit, she totaled up all those things in her mind, and they asked for $20,000. They got to trial, and they got a lot more than that. What might have changed, do you think, between the time that they filed the suit and she asked for $20,000 and them getting to trial? What could have changed? What process would they have gone through in litigation that might make their case stronger? What do you get to do after you file a lawsuit? What's the next step? Discovery. They might have found out some things in discovery that changed their ask at trial. Like, oh, you guys knew that this was hot, too hot. And you knew it because people had been burned before. Right? That might have changed the ask. So she got $200,000 in compensatory damages. How much did the jury award in punitive damages? What was the million?
2 million, something like that.
$2.7 million in punitive damages. Your article says that the judge later reduced that. The judges do have some discretion to adjust damages on punitive damages, and that judge adjusted it to 3 times compensatory, I think. So she would have ended up with $600,000 in punitive damages, $200,000 in compensatory. So she really, after the judge reduced it, she made out with $800,000. Your article tells you that the case settled before it went up on appeal for a little bit less than that. What do y'all think explains that? Why would she have settled the case for less money than what the jury awarded? What leverage would McDonald's have at that point? Paying lawyers, because
She might have been lying about the injuries.
well, the jury, the fact-finding part of the trial would be done. The appeal, remember, would have to be that there was a misapplication of the law at trial, not that she wasn't actually injured. So all the facts would stay the same, the way the jury found them. Well, what risks, let me ask you a different way, what risk does Ms. Liebeck have with not settling and continuing if McDonald's appeals it? She might lose. That's right. She might not win on appeal. They might send it back down where they've got to redo the trial. So she's not guaranteed that until the appeal is exhausted. Benny, question?
These things, court, everything can take up years and years. And she was 79, I don't want to be rude or anything.
Bingo, right? An appeal means this thing might stretch out a couple more years. And if I settle it, I get the money now. So maybe she was willing to take, I don't know what the number was, usually those things are confidential. But let's say they offered her $500,000 to just, to accept that, and they would not appeal. That would end the case. I mean, I don't know what the number would be. But she would then have to make that calculation that Benny identified, which is, I've got a bird in the hand worth $500,000. I've got a possible jury verdict of $800,000 that could be overturned, that I'm not guaranteed, and then it might take me a couple more years to realize. I just take my $500,000 and go home. Especially if that amount of money, that's so much more than she asked for and so much more than she needed in her actual damage. I mean, that would have covered her compensatory damages 3 times over. So, or a couple times over. So that might have been that might have been her incentive. All right, so let's think about the theory of products liability that she may have used when she sued. Is negligence applicable here? What do y'all think?
Yes.
Yes? In what way, Mr. Cooks?
People have been burned before. So.
People have been burned. You know that you're serving something that's going to cause burns. What about, was there a defect, any defect in the product design? I know what I think, but I don't know what y'all think. What do you think, Mason? Is it defectively designed? Probably not. I mean, the coffee was fine. It was in the manufacture of it or the presentation of it that really was where the defect was.
Could be her fault.
We could also make the argument that maybe there was an inadequate warning. I don't know what the warning, if any, was on the cup. I bet that there wasn't much warning at.
It could be an assumed warning that's hot, you order that.
Yeah, that makes it class and hard.
So we're gonna get into that in a minute. We're definitely getting into that in a minute because. Did anybody get coffee this morning? You got coffee this morning from where?
The crib, out of the house.
Did anybody buy it this morning?
Isn't this when they started putting the warning on coffee?
Yeah.
Probably so.
That's what I heard.
If you're Burger King and you see in the news that this happened, what's the first thing you're doing with your coffee cups?
They put the warning on.
You're gonna start putting a daggum warning on it because you saw McDonald's just got dinged for $3 million.
Yeah, when I heard of this story, I heard that's where it started.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. If you think about, if you read warning labels, a lot of what's in a warning label comes from past experience, right? And especially some of the ridiculous things you see. Somebody misused a product in a way that you wouldn't think they would, but they did. And so from there on out, the manufacturer decides, guess I better warn people of that. Even though it seems obvious, the safer way for me to go about my business is just warn. Might as well just warn. What alternatives did McDonald's have, if any? What else could they have done in the manufacture, the presentation of this product? I mean, they could have served it cooler, right? It's really the only one I can think of. I guess an alternative would be a warning. Another alternative might be a thicker, safer cup. I don't know, I'm reaching. Some of the other alternatives they had might not be reasonable. I was thinking of, what if they just made a cup where the lid didn't come off, but then people aren't gonna be able to put in their cream and sugar? That wouldn't work either. I don't know that there were any great alternatives other than serving it at a lower temperature. Ms. Liebeck used a couple of theories that are not in your notes for products liability, and I'm not testing you on these. But those were that McDonald's breached a couple of implied warranties. Did anybody buy coffee this week? Hot coffee this week from No one. You all drink it at home? See?
I'm sure he did.
Oh, Nathan probably did. You're right. He did. We need him to get back in here.
Yeah, for real.
Think back to the last time that you did buy coffee, if you did, from McDonald's or anywhere. When they gave you the coffee, did you realize or know that when they gave it to you, they were giving you a warranty, an implied warranty of merchantability? Meaning, what I'm giving you, what you're buying, what I'm serving, conforms to the normal expectations for that product. This is a cup of coffee that is hot. That's what you expect. This is what you think it is. This is what you order. Anybody realize that they get that implied warranty every time they buy the coffee? When you bought that microwave, there was an implied warranty that what you were buying was a microwave, a regular microwave that would cook food without making the sound of, what'd you say, a motorboat? Something like that?
Yeah, drummers.
Drummers, right. Okay. You also get an implied warranty of fitness for a particular purpose. That means that what I'm selling you, what I'm serving you, is fit for the purpose that it's intended. The microwave will cook the food. The coffee will be safe to drink. Your scooter will be safe to ride. Those implied warranties. All right, Nathan, we got a question for you.
Yeah.
When's the last time you bought coffee?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. All right. When the barista handed you your coffee, did you realize that there were some implied warranties that they were giving you with it?
Blood warranties?
Yeah. Did you know that was part of the transaction?
I mean, what do you mean by warranties?
So we were talking about, this is a theory of recovery under product liability that Ms. Liebeck used. And they go along with every purchase. There's an implied warranty of merchantability, which means that what I'm selling you is conforms to the normal expectations of what it is. So you're getting a hot cup of coffee that's going to taste like coffee.
Then I guess I don't have warranty on coffee.
Well, it's an implied warranty. It goes with every sale. You also got an implied warranty of fitness for a particular purpose, meaning that the coffee was safe for its purpose, which would be drinking, caffeinated.
Right.
You got both of those. We all get that when we make a purchase of a product. We don't know it. It's not written. Some warranties are written, but these are implied warranties. They go along with every sale. The jury found that McDonald's breached those warranties. I wanted to ask you about sort of the overall goals of product liability law, and we already talked about that a little, which would be we want to incentivize the manufacturers to be as careful as they can. We want to punish them if they do wrong knowingly. We want to shift the burden, the financial burden of being careful and compensating victims to the manufacturer as opposed to the consumer. And we want to compensate people for their injuries. These are all the goals behind it. Your article makes this statement, a couple statements I want to ask you your reaction. First one is, law is meant to distribute the burden of injuries to those in the best position to prevent the injury, and to shift the financial burden to those in the best position to handle the cost. We talked about that. What do y'all think about that? What's your reaction to that? As a consumer, what's your reaction to that? Hell yeah, make the business pay. What is your reaction to that as a business owner?
Unfair.
Unfair, you don't like that?
I mean, the consumer can just be negligent at any time and still fall back on the company.
Yeah, why am I gonna have to pay when they're being careless idiots?
Right.
Which reminds me of, I told y'all one of my number one rules. I might not have. This is important. Most people are idiots. Have we not thought about that yet? I mean, none of us, but most people are idiots. And I've found that to be true. So yeah, There you go, Mr. Henry. You people are idiots. The world is made up of majority of idiots. If they can't figure out how to put hot coffee cream in their coffee, then they don't need to be buying the coffee. I'm not saying that's right. We're just making the argument on both sides. What about this statement? It is expected and accepted that the higher costs associated with avoiding and or paying for injuries will be passed on to the consumer in the form of higher prices. Because Mr. Henry, what are you going to do in your business if you're mad that you keep getting sued for idiots misusing your product? What are you going to turn around and do?
I start putting like caution signs on my.
Yeah, you're gonna try to limit your risk. But what's another way of sticking it back to the consumer? Raising prices. Raising prices. So this statement from your article said it's expected and accepted that manufacturers are going to pass that cost along to us. What do y'all think of what's your reaction to that? Yes? Nothing we can do about it? Yes, that's outrageous? No? What do you think, Ben?
You see it all the time, like auto insurance in Georgia, because of the way our trial system's set up, we pay like 63% higher than every bordering state for auto insurance, homeowners insurance, business insurance. Trucking insurance is absolutely ridiculous.
So see, that ties back to your discussion question from a couple weeks ago about tort reform. That in some states where they don't put a lid on what people can recover in torts, that these insurance companies are just going to jack up the insurance rates on the businesses, because the insurance companies are the ones ultimately paying. And then the businesses, when they see their increased insurance premiums, they're going to turn around and what? Pass that on to the consumer.
Where I work at, we have two products we make, well, could make, but we don't because they're required DOT permits.
All right, hold on. Where do you work?
It's like a chemical company, we make, degreaser.
Okay. And y'all manufacture the products there? Or do y'all outsource? Is it an intensive manufacturing process? Do y'all do the design yourselves?
Basically, you get the recipe.
Get the recipe. And you select the ingredients, yes, and you put all that together, and y'all handle the marketing and distribution as well? So is it start to finish?
The salesperson is just based on how many contacts they can.
Gotcha. Okay. And, so I interrupted you because I wanted to back up. What were you saying?
Anyway, there's this product called Profoam and Asphalt Release, but you require to have DOT permits to haul it. Like if it falls off your truck, they gotta come clean it up. So we have to buy it from this other guy, we contract out to, and use his permits. And then that cost gets passed down to the buyer.
Right, because that's part of your manufacturing cost. Would you say that, over the last couple of years, have your materials and those costs and things like that increased to the point where you've had to pass that on as well?
Our prices are going up.
Yeah, I mean, that's more of a general question, not just inflation and the general state of things than it is product liability. But yeah, that's a great real life example for Mr. Massey. Their costs go up, that gets passed right on down to the consumers. So next question is, put yourself in we're gonna put on our lawyer hats, and you all are the lawyers for Stella. And it's discovery time. We've filed our lawsuit, we have sued McDonald's for product liability, and now it's time for us to do discovery. What are the things that you want to know? What are the things you want to ask for from McDonald's? Document-wise, or numbers-wise, or information-wise.
Complaints of previous customers about coffee related.
Absolutely. How many previous complaints of customers have you got? What else? What, Ms. Robinson? How hot is it? Oh, audits. Internally, do y'all How do you all measure? How do you all monitor this? Do you have policies that say it has to be this hot? Because I think somewhere in your reading said it did. Say,
Maybe, did they have warning signs on their coffee?
what were the warning signs? What did you know and when, right? Who made the decision? If there is a policy that says coffee needs to be 180 degrees, who decided that? Who came up with that? How does that get communicated to the stores? What's your research and development? What's your testing? Did y'all do any testing on this? Somebody decided that 180 degrees was the right, somebody in your company decided that 180 degrees was the optimal temperature. Who decided that? Where'd that come from? What all went into that? Did you do testing? Did you do taste tests? Did you consult burn experts? All those types of things you would want to know in discovery. You'd want to ask for their internal information. You'd want to ask for their communications related to it. You'd want to know the names, positions of everybody who had anything to do with these decisions. That'd be information you could ask for in your interrogatories or requests for production documents. Then you could pick out the people that you wanted to depose, take their depositions. In the interrogatories, we said, who sets this policy? McDonald's answers and says, so-and-so does. Next thing you're going to do is say, well, I would like to take his deposition, her deposition. We're going to ask her all these questions. Nathan.
Could you ask for other companies?
Could you ask for other companies? That is a great question. The answer is yes.
Just like their average temperature?
You can.
Their-
So the rules of, in the litigation rules, you can make discovery requests not only to just the other party in your case, but you can make discovery requests to non-parties. Like, in this case, I might send a request for production of documents to Burger King and say, send me your policies on your coffee and the temperature of coffee. If I'm in a divorce case and I know that the husband has accounts at Truist Bank, I can send a request for production of documents to Truist Bank. They're not part of the divorce, they're not a party, but the rules of litigation allow me to get information from non-parties as well. So yeah, we sure could. That's a great question. So part of our discovery might not just be asking for information from McDonald's, might be asking for information from similar fast food restaurants. Notice from your article too that there was testimony about expert testimony from burn experts. So each side can hire your own burn expert, and you would want to take depositions of the other side's expert because you want to know what they're saying, what their expert opinion is, and what the basis of their opinion is. You want to hear all that before you get to trial. You can figure out how to either discredit it or undercut it or rebut it with your own expert. If you are McDonald's lawyer, for a second, what do you see as your best area of attack? Her what? Her fault. You're going to explore her negligence, right? You're going to hammer in on that as much as you can. Because we know that argument did resonate with the jury. They bought that she was partially at fault. That'd be a place to hammer. What was the apportionment of fault comparatively that the jury did in the case?
20% involved.
How much?
20%.
20% to her, 80% to McDonald's. So her $200,000 got reduced by 20%. So my earlier math on what she actually got awarded was wrong. 80-20. My question is, you all are jurors. And I know you didn't sit through the trial, obviously, and maybe your knowledge of this case extends only to what I assigned, but how would you assign fault? Let's start over here with Mr. Kyle. Juror Cochran, how do you decide?
I think the 80/20 is fair, but we'd have to see everything that came with discovery. I mean, if they could prove that she was, like the car was moving or something like that, it'd probably be different than 80/20, but if they were sitting still, and she just spilled it, it was 180-degree coffee, I'd say that's most of McDonald's.
Okay, 80/20. I wonder how, if your answers would be different if you didn't know. I might do that next semester. I'm not gonna tell you what the percentage of fall was. And see if that, influences anybody. What do you say, Miracle?
I say her should be boosted up a little bit.
You'd have made her a little bit more fall?
I do, yeah. I mean, because she is elderly, so you would think that, you don't really.
She should know
Yeah,
that.
you would know better, if that makes sense.
She
I
should,
don't know,
she's
I
got
have
a lot
a
more life
bias.
experience. Is
Yeah.
that what you're arguing?
Yeah, I
I
have a
like
bias
that.
standpoint.
All right, what you got, Mr. Grace?
I'd give her actually 20%, because actually it's happened, if that's the case, the car would stop.
All right, so you would have signed less than 20%. More, in other words, McDonald's would much more than that. All right, what do you say, Garcia?
I think it's like 50/50.
50/50, all right? So she might be in trouble if she were in a contributory negligence state, where if you're more at fault than the other, you're at just out of luck. What do you say, Rita?
I say like 40, 60.
40/60?
Yeah.
Who's 40?
Um,
Her, okay, 40/60. You find her a little bit more, responsible. Okay. What do you say, Mr. Coffee Drinker?
I'm lingering between 30 and
30 and 40, all right?
40. Like, no, I mean, like, it's definitely partly her fault, because she should have had experience into it, rather than her at her, like, age trying to, like, to handle that hot coffee by herself. Like, between her lap. Definitely wasn't the smartest move. But at the same time, the coffee is still, like, McDonald's is still, like, at fault, largely, mostly, definitely, because, I mean, like, they're keeping the coffee, like, 30 degrees higher than like, they need to,
Yep.
for some reason, despite the damage it poses to people. So that's why I think it's, like, mostly McDonald's fault, but I think that really has, like, more at fault cases.
Okay. Vinny, you got a response to that?
You don't do this in a car, first of all. Second of all, you don't do this when it's a hot day, putting it in between your legs.
Okay.
Sorry, like.
So,
it's-
if you're on the jury, what would you have done?
For me, like, this is ridiculous thing. I would be laughing because I hope this is not happening. Like,
So you would-
If this happens and someone goes into the McDonald's and complains to the manager after that,
Yeah?
they're just gonna laugh it off. This is like, that's why when I told you about the American
Yeah.
justice system, for us,
This is fascinating to me. So you think that culturally, in your country, this would not a jury would not have sympathy for the,
Yeah.
like,
Because I don't wanna be relenting on this idiocy. I don't know how to say this, like.
is there anything, what would it have taken for you to change your mind? Like, what if the coffee was 300 degrees?
I mean, yeah, we can maybe those things, but for me.
I'm trying to figure out where you're lying. So I'm getting that your line in this case is,
Yeah,
she's 100% responsible.
yeah.
But can you think of any way you would cross the line to make McDonald's more responsible?
If the cup fell apart, if the
Yeah,
coffee was
the
hot enough,
for example.
and the
Okay.
cup fell apart, it was weak,
Yeah.
and, I mean, just wasted out of the bottom of it or whatever.
Alright, so in other words,
I mean, there's another thing.
it is possible
Yeah.
for, in your mind, it's possible for McDonald's to be at fault, but not in this case. Gotcha. I would love that perspective. Anybody have a response to that?
She's a passenger in the vehicle, and so there's someone else in the vehicle, so her being elderly is kind of beside the point, because the person that she was with was younger, and wouldn't take care of her, so it's partially on them too.
Partially on them, is it?
Cause he drove her there.
And so,
He
She was
handed,
79.
that's more, that is more more fault to her. What do you think about that, Sarah? What would you do?
She just, yeah, I think I would say 50/50.
50/50.
She shouldn't have put it between me, like, you know, me and my girlfriend, I'm very careful.
So where do you put it? Where would you put it?
Put it in
Which
a
cream?
cup holder or something, I usually like wait a couple minutes to drink it with all of them.
Oh, we put that cup holders in every car and everything else.
They had the cup holder you put over the door. You had to put the little, you had the one that you put on the door.
That's right.
And you know,
They
like
didn't
it
come
was
standard
right.
back then.
We didn't have that back
It
then.
did not come standard. In fact,
That's why they did
What
that.
I remember
I
from
guess
growing
it
up
does
is
too,
that
her grandson should have been like, hey, hold this.
the place that you put, back me up, Ms. Marshall, where did you put a cup from the drive-through in your car?
You put it on the door. You had, like I said, the
Or-
little holder.
We
or
put it
you-
between our legs.
Yeah, and you put it
That's what
between
we
your
did.
legs, right?
Yeah.
No, y'all had to have some kind of cup holder.
Yeah, no, they didn't
I
start
would have
putting
never
those
put
in
it,
the
that's why,
cars until
that's why I
later.
keep the cup.
And that's why McDonald's and all the rest of them started, adding your cream and your cream and sugar to your coffee before you got it. So, they ask you what you want instead of giving you the packets and the creamer.
See, we got the perspective of the old people here.
We didn't have that.
We didn't have,
Did
basically.
McDonald's give those little cup holder trays back then?
Did they what?
Give those little cup holder trays back then?
They did have cup holder trays back then, if I believe, but I feel like
They
they
weren't
were
steady.
flimsier,
They weren't, no.
but what's your percentage?
I'm not on percentage. She had an assumed risk that it was hot, she ordered hot coffee,
Yeah.
but it was also McDonald's fault for having too hot coffee. If you were to find that they had an above average temperature,
Which the jury did.
then you should assign some blame for that blame. You can't just be handing out money to everybody who's done that coffee.
Benny is like the guy in the, y'all saw where the one juror said at the beginning of the case, I didn't know why I was here to sell a coffee still. What? Lock my dad in the deals. What's your percentage, Will?
I'm gonna add, or take away 5% from McDonald's fault, just
Yeah.
because I think the jury, in my opinion, I think the jury found McDonald's guilty on the thought of 180 degrees being in your mouth and going down your throat, not necessarily being spread across your lap. If you understand what I'm saying.
Okay.
Also, she's 79, so would a 25-year-old get the same burns as she would? Because it's skin, but it's different. Seasonal skin.
Go ahead.
Okay, but she's 79, she knows what she's capable of. You have to know what you're capable of. I had my great grandparents, 95, at the age of 90, they were not going out of their flat, their apartment, because they know that if they're going down, that they are not.
You can't get a coffee because you're old.
They're ordering. They're ordering someone to someone. They were ordering everything for themselves.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, you have to know what you're capable of at your age.
Well,
I'm sorry, that's human nature.
McDonald's called and they wanted to hire you as their lawyer.
No, but seriously, as a human, you have to know what you're capable of.
I think
That's
that's a
when you
fascinating
get that
perspective.
old, it's not true, like,
I'm sorry,
my
but
grandma,
that's my opinion.
85 years old, she wants her car, we even hired a nurse to live with her, because we tried to cut her a nurse, home, she didn't want to live there. And then she fired the nurse, she doesn't have a driver's license, and she still drives it. Like, she thinks she can still
Well,
drive.
I mean, last presidential race, weren't they both 80? I mean.
Yeah, that's true. We're gonna let the people that run our country be older than, Ms. Linda. We're not getting into that. I promise we're not getting into that. I can't handle it. What do you think?
I think that McDonald's has no fault for making the coffee hot, to be honest. And I agree with Penny that I shouldn't bring the court at.
What would it have taken for McDonald's to be at fault?
Like that the coffee was like breaking because it was
No,
so
the cup?
like
Okay.
enormous.
Okay. Otherwise, you feel like you know what they're giving you, a hot cup of coffee. Okay. All right, France, what do you say? You agree with it, that you're sticking together here? All right, what do you say, Bernardus?
I'm going with 50-50.
50-50.
I mean, she, like, there was a, well, like, she knew the coffee was hot, so she, I mean,
regarding the silence and Paul, what do you think?
I would say it's a little bit negative to pay for their needs, but also at the same time, like, if you also need the coffee above what they normally serve it, it would be their fault. But I'm gonna say it's negligent.
I mean, we could, obviously, the last time, in this focus of the class, is not, comparative law, international law versus other countries, although I find that important to use. See, what do you?
I don't know, I think McDonald's offer was too hot, and that they probably should have just covered the hospitals.
They probably wish they had paid the $20,000 you asked for, right? What do you think, Nick?
I think it's 80%.
80/20? Well, Mr. Collins agreed with 80/22, and I expected more people to agree with the jury, but most of y'all didn't. Who did I say? You good with 80/20? Okay. Mr. Austin? 80/22? Probably not our first time. Well, if you do put coffee between your knees from the drive-through, you would rather do it in America than Europe, right? Probably, yes.
Did you say that like 90% of people wait to drink their coffee? They don't pour it in the cup and then just start drinking it. They wait to put on a little bit.
So that's interesting. McDonald's said that. Did y'all catch that? They said, well, I mean, I don't think the jury bought it, but they said most people get coffee at a drive-through to drink at their destination. I don't think I buy that, but I might buy Mason's argument that most people, when you get a hot drink, you wait a minute.
She got some strong goals or something.
Well, that's the thing. What if she just took it and drank it, and then it's burned all the way?
Yeah.
Everybody's burn
Yeah, but
ratio
still, okay,
is
but-
different when they drink.
But I agree with Mason in that I know personally, if I get served a hot cup of coffee or hot chocolate, you blow on it. You're not gulping it right away. I skipped you, Madison. What proportion do you give?
I'm less lenient. I think, the common sense isn't so common, so.
Common sense is not so common because most Americans are idiots. I'll amend my rule. All right, let's see. We have a couple more minutes. I wanted to know, why do y'all think that McDonald's kept serving the coffee at 180 degrees even when they knew people were getting burned by it? How come, Miracle?
I think honestly it's hard to please the public, because if it's not hot enough, then you're gonna get even more complaints. You won't get a lawsuit, but you'll get even more complaints saying, why, when I get the coffee, it's cold.
We'd rather pay for having it too hot than risk losing the business from serving coffee that's lukewarm. Probably so. I think that your article also said that from a statistics standpoint, you'll like this argument, Benny. They serve billions of cups of coffee. Only a handful of people get burned. Is that really a big problem?
We live on the extreme around the
It's a big problem to the one that got burned, maybe not
But
to
I
the...
feel like that's with every product, like something doesn't necessarily work for every single person.
That's right. Products are not going to work the same for everybody. But if you're a business and your job is to maximize profits and increase shareholder value, and you're getting sued for hot coffee, but it is not affecting the bottom line, do you have any incentive to change that?
Isn't it also to let your coffee sit, for a while after you brew it, at those high temperatures, so it's cooling down over time?
Yep.
Maybe that's another reason why I want to keep it going.
But what if like Miracle says, and you start doing that, you're McDonald's, and you're like, all right, everybody, let's knock it down to 165, and let's say it has to sit for a second or something. Then you start getting complaints, McDonald's coffee is cold. We ain't going to McDonald's anymore. Yeah, they said it was for the taste, right? Isn't that?
So if you pulled it down and then their coffee tasted different, people get mad about that.
I don't know. I'm not a big coffee drinker. What do you say to that, Brooks?
What was that?
The taste. Would it affect?
To be honest, I mean, I don't really think so. Like, I don't know if there's too big a taste between 150 and 180, because then you're letting it cool down anyways before you drink it. Because no one's chugging like 180 or 150 degree coffee. They're waiting for it to cool down. So.
I would argue that even if McDonald's, and again, I don't know what the settlement amount was, but let's say they settled for $500,000, that's probably still fine with them. They're not gonna. I don't think that's gonna change their behavior or their policy. I mean, I think they're probably, from an economic standpoint, good with that. All right, any questions about products liability or this case or anything else we talked about today? You do have a quiz. It's due Monday night. It is going to be a long one, so make sure you plan enough time to take it. There's a discussion question this week. Oh, I want to talk about that real quick. What I'm interested in your discussion question this week is if you can think of an example of where you encounter negligence in your everyday life. I'm looking for a real life example. I'm wondering if, since we've talked about negligence, have y'all gone out into the world and been like, oh, that was negligent. I was negligent, or you were negligent, or I saw some negligence. I'm curious as to know if you can give me some real life examples of that. So I will see y'all Tuesday. We'll take up a new topic. Y'all have a good weekend.